Hi, this is Stacy Higginbotham with GigaOM, and I'm here with Ted Morgan, CEO of Skyhook, and Josh Williams, CEO of Gowalla, and we're going to talk about location. Hi, guys.
Hi, Stacy.
Hi.
All right. Thanks for sitting down here at Mobile Monday Austin and doing this with me. So, I'm curious, from both of you guys, to me, location seems like a feature rather than something I need to have. So, like a game like Gowalla, it's exciting, but it's not the killer app kind of thing. So let's talk about the importance of location and how you guys kind of, what's going to happen there?
Well, we obviously think location's much more than a feature. We see it as a piece of the underlying infrastructure. We actually think it's the lifeblood of mobile. It's what makes mobile very different than the desktop web. Where you are tells a whole lot about you, tells a lot about the context of your behavior at that time. So we see location moving out of these traditional navigation and search apps into more gaming and social applications and use cases, and even those use cases feeding into pretty much every other type of application.
Exactly. I think that location may it's a pillar of the larger social platform as a whole. I think stuff like CheckIn. CheckIn's a feature, and CheckIn is an implementation of location. But I think location as a whole is very much a platform play. And I think over the next year, we're going to see a lot of players come in with what they feel like should be the standard for this platform. And there's definitely going to be some shakeout with how one plays are.
I think what's really neat is that the check-in concept, like what you see in Gowalla, is this feature that you're going to see across a lot of apps, but it really was the transformational piece that made it obvious to everybody how to use location. Because folks like us are just providing a place on the globe where you are. Attaching it to the place you're at, the name of it, the type of establishment, what you're doing, was the piece that's always been missing. And these apps really brought that together.
It contextualizes it in the same way that like you have a Twitter, status update or Facebook, feed update. Somebody's comfortable communicating in that sort of like snippet chunk.
Right.
And people aren't comfortable with their location being like broadcast like a beacon all the time, but they are comfortable with this idea of like in this moment, I'm going to give you this context of here's what's interesting and here's what's relevant. And I think that's
here's what I want to be bragging about right now.
Exactly.
And I think you probably see Twitter head down the same path, because right now you can geotag tweets, but it's just going to be a lat long on a street. It doesn't say much about where you are and why you're there and who you're with. And, that's the piece, I think, which will make messages like Twitter much more interesting. And it's these kind of apps that are really tying all that together.
Exactly.
And that's a great point, because when I think check-in, I think, gosh, this is interesting. And I have this plan where I'm trying to get my neighbors to join Gowalla or Foursquare, so I can start using it in, like, when they're at the grocery store. If I can get the updates, I can say, hey, text them, can you get me a pint of milk? My kid's sick.
Exactly.
So I think of Twitter as like, it was really cool for a while and just this random tool that geeks used. And now it's actually becoming useful because it's integrated in like Yelp or places like that where I can get actual information. So what are some things, how are you going to make checking in that kind of baseline or that kind of tool? Are you going to open up the API? Kind of, let's talk about that.
So for us, I feel like check-in's kind of like the gateway. That's the first step. And right now with Gowalla, there's not a whole lot more depth once you get beyond the act of checking in. And so for us, I think the challenge becomes what sort of other interesting ways can we provide people to interact with each other over location, like your milk example. So for instance, I'm at Home Depot the other day. I check in. And 5 minutes later, I get a text from a friend of mine who's 2 blocks away at Best Buy, and he's just purchased a television that's too large than his car can hold. And so he texts and he says, "Are you in your wife's car? Can you come over and pick up, take me home with my television?" And so, sure enough, I've got my wife's larger vehicle, so I was like, "Yeah, I'll come pick you up." and that was awesome. Like that's serendipity
Yeah.
work. The problem
Right.
is he actually had to go out channel to write that text message. And if we can allow for that sort of thing to happen in channel, where now instead of him quitting Gowalla and pulling up something else and going through another venue, but instead he can like shoot that to me straight through Gowalla and say, hey, I'm like right around the corner and I've got this issue. Can you come help me solve it? To your point, I need some milk. Can you pick it up for me? That's like a second layer of interaction that happens beyond the check-in. And I think that's
using the check-in as a way to connect with a community or to create almost a instant community. Like if you were checking into a concert, people go to the same concerts who like the same type of music and tend to be the same type of people. You can see who checked in there and you connect to them and you're messaging them. There's no reason why you couldn't continue that relationship.
It's opening the door.
Yeah, and it's not even about necessarily extending new relationships, although a lot of the stuff that's very cool, but it's also providing another layer of context, just like the status update.
Right.
So tied to that, you mentioned doing something like that inside Gowalla, but what about working with other providers like Facebook or Google Buzz? I mean, because like Ted here, being a platform, that's awesome. So what are your plans there, and kind of how does?
This is, we've talked about this a little bit in terms of like privacy before as well, where there's going to be times when I want to share my location with a select subset of friends. There's going to be times when I'm okay with sharing it with everybody. And I see platforms as kind of the same way, that through Gowalla, we would like you to be able to share your location data, share your check-in experience through any one of these other platforms. So if that happens to be Twitter, great. If it happens to be Facebook, great. If Facebook actually comes out with an implicit location, API, we obviously want to support that. For Gowalla, like what we're about is making like the top layer of location interesting and compelling. And I think there's going to be a variety of platforms down beneath, including our own. But there's going to be a lot of plumbing. And I think we want to make the best use of all that plumbing that we possibly can, especially until we find out kind of what standards emerge and what place that means.
All right. Anything else?
No, I think the only other interesting thing I've started to see develop is this concept that we call check-in envy, which is kind of neat. If you get involved in these apps, you find that people start to aggregate all of these check-ins into you as a person. And so I've had people come up to me and say, wow, you go out to dinner a lot. I mean, you're out to dinner all the time. And I'm actually not. But when they aggregate it all, you just see this stream of activity. You feel like you're the only one not out on a Tuesday night. And there's this feeling like you see on Twitter where it's this voyeurism into other people's lives. The check-in concept is like everyone's out having fun without me. And it's really bizarre, social behavior comes out where people feel like they have to go out more because their friends are checking in with them.
Well, and back to the social capital of all. If we can do something that encourages somebody to step out beyond like the norm of their life,
Right.
That really excites me.
Are you really going to a national park just to get a badge this summer?
Absolutely, I totally am. Hopefully, a lot of other people will follow suit as well. But I definitely am.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
Take care.